Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Gray. I am the Vice Chair of the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce and representative for UK Export Finance in West Africa. And welcome to today's DIT webinar. We're joined by both representatives of the UK government and captains of industry in Ghana. And the purpose of today's session is really to share valuable insights on how to develop and boost business resilience in these difficult times. But before I go much further, I'd like to introduce you to Lindsey Gilbert-Crouch, DIT Director for Ghana. Over to you, Lindsey.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Steve, and Akwaba to this UK Department for International Trade event on Coming Back Stronger. Thanks to the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce for the delivery of today's event. Thank you to our esteemed speakers, Mr. Wissam Al Monthiry, Managing Director of Tullow Ghana, and Mrs. Mansa Nettey, Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank Ghana. It's an honour to host the leaders of these two of the biggest UK investors in Ghana to discuss this all-important topic of business resilience. And thanks to our moderator, Steve Gray, for facilitating what I'm sure will be a lively and interesting discussion. We've all lived through an unprecedented period since March, and it's good to hear from the UK business community in Ghana about their experiences of COVID-19 and how they are reacting to the continued uncertainty of the present moment in order to come back stronger from the crisis. Over the last 7 months, the UK and Ghana have worked closely together to weather the crisis, and we are proud that UK investors have played a leading role in supporting this. Tullow Ghana not only continued production throughout the crisis, they also supported the broader response by continuing with their long history of corporate social responsibility in Ghana, with initiatives such as their STEM radio school, which allowed students to continue with their education while schools remain closed. Standard Chartered Bank responded quickly to the lockdown to ensure that their customers remained served while protecting their staff, keeping their branches open throughout. They also established a fund for Ghanaian companies pivoting to PPE production and made several substantial donations of PPE. As we look forward to the weeks and months ahead, the British High Commission hopes to continue to work closely with our key investors in Ghana to support economic recovery. And I believe that we can rely upon the strength of the UK-Ghana partnership to deliver once again on making this happen. Back to you, Steve.
Lindsey, thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to now introduce Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Africa, Emma Wade-Smith, who has a message for the participants today.
Hello, I'm Emma Wade-Smith, the UK's Trade Commissioner for Africa, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. This webinar series has been brought together by a partnership between the UK's Department for International Trade's Ghana team and the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce. And this series is not just designed to help you stay in touch during these difficult times, but actually to provide you with some practical information on topical issues. So this series is going to cover issues like business resilience, how to build back better, cleaner, greener, more resiliently, the opportunities that abound in Ghana on education, infrastructure, financial and professional services, how to maintain momentum on digital adoption, and indeed how engaging with diaspora can help you achieve your business objectives. As the UK's Trade Commissioner for Africa, I lead trade and investment teams across 23 African countries. We look at providing trade continuity, tackling market access barriers, and indeed promoting trade and investment opportunities. And Ghana is a really important business partner for us. We have a great long-term partnership between Ghana and the UK, and I know that we can do even better. I know that times now are tougher than most of us have ever experienced in our lives. And as part of the UK government, we, the Department for International Trade, are here to work with you to help you achieve your business goals. And hopefully to inspire more UK companies to think about coming to do business in Ghana. We are here to help. So the purpose of this webinar, and indeed the whole webinar series, is to share strategies, best practice, insights, and to provide a platform for questions, for discussion and for sharing of knowledge. I do hope that you'll find today's webinar useful, and please do get in touch with the Ghana Trade and Investment team to follow up. Thank you.
Emma, thank you very much for that. As you can see, it's been 9 months since COVID became a global pandemic, and the initial shock and awe on the business environment is now moving into a new normal, which much of our business activity having moved from a physical environment into a virtual environment, but yet the need to work in the real world remains so relevant. So many businesses have been forced to suspend staff or reduce their salaries, and where available seek government support just to survive. But nevertheless, businesses are faced with an operational environment that now includes higher cost, lower productivity thanks to the frictions caused by this pandemic. As I said earlier, today I'm pleased to be joined by two captains of industry, and I'd like to invite them to come and introduce themselves. First, Mansa.
Hi, Stephen and Emma and Lindsey and everybody else. My name is Mansa Nettey, the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, as already introduced by Lindsey. I'll just say a few words about the bank. So Standard Chartered Bank has been in Ghana operating in over 120 years and is listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Being part of an international banking group with footprints in 9 markets worldwide, we connect companies, institutions, and individuals to, and in some of the world's fastest growing and most dynamic regions, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Our heritage and values are expressed in our brand promise, Here for Good. Our operations reflect purpose, which is to drive commerce and prosperity through our unique diversity. Being part of Ghana's premier bank, Standard Chartered has been in the forefront of financial market development, supporting trade, investment activities of our customers and clients with capabilities in trade, wealth management, and sovereign solutions. Over the past decade, we have been developing standardized digital platforms such as Straight to Bank for our corporates and SME clients. In 2019, the bank launched a full digital bank on mobile, SE Mobile, providing end-to-end client onboarding and up to 70 in-branch services requests on your mobile. We're leveraging our heritage, legacy, and network. We continue to help shape and build the banking industry and financial services industry by providing thought leadership like today on key industry topics. The bank has been the recipient of several local and international awards, including being named the best consumer digital bank by Global Finance magazine for 8 consecutive years. And also recently, the Euromoney Awards Excellence Scheme announced SCB Ghana as Africa's best bank for transformation at its 2020 awards ceremony. Thank you, Stephen.
Mansa, thank you very much. And it's my pleasure also now to introduce Wissam Al Monthiry, as Managing Director of Tullow Ghana. Wissam, over to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and welcome everybody. So as Stephen said, my name is Wissam Al Monthiry. I'm relatively new to my role as Managing Director at Tullow Ghana, where I was appointed earlier this year. And just quickly start by saying it's been an absolute pleasure for me and a privilege really to be working in Ghana and having the opportunity to work with the government of Ghana and people in Ghana. A quick thank you to you, Stephen, Mansa, the UKGCC, Lindsey, and of course Emma for opening comments. We are not only an energy player in Ghana, but also, as Stephen said, an investor, a UK investor in Ghana, and so it's a great opportunity to talk about this topic of resilience through the COVID crisis. For those of you that don't know, Tullow Ghana is a subsidiary of Tullow PLC, which is a UK listed oil and gas company. We, as Tullow PLC, have a pretty global portfolio of exploration, production, and management of oil and gas resources. Certainly over the last decade, Tullow PLC has had Africa as an area of focus, and chief among that focus has been Ghana, where Tullow has been present initially since 2006 and with very significant infrastructure since 2010. Today, Tullow, alongside its partners, including, of course, the government of Ghana, are one of the largest investors in Ghana. If you look just briefly over the 10 years since 2010, Tullow and its partners have invested over $18 billion in the development of the 10 and Jubilee fields offshore Ghana. And they, of course, today provide extremely valuable resource to the country, both in terms of revenues and in terms of power in the infrastructure in the country. In addition to that, Tullow and its partners have provided over $5 billion in taxes and royalties. And as mentioned earlier, we think about just over $35 million of investment in socioeconomic projects across a whole variety of categories that we're more than happy to talk more about. Tullow Ghana also has a very bright future, and Ghana remains an extremely important part of the future for Tullow PLC, and I look forward to playing a very small part of that alongside my many hardworking colleagues in Tullow Ghana. Thank you, Stephen.
Wissam, thank you very much for those remarks. Just to remind everybody today, if you have any questions for the panelists, please enter them into the chat box and we will respond to them during the Q&A session on today's webinar. But first of all, going to you, Mansa, the banking sector is one that is used to identifying, measuring and pricing risks. But given the pandemic we've all experienced, what were the 3 key techniques or tools your business deployed to mitigate the impact of COVID on your business?
So Stephen, I think COVID-19 has been one of the testing moments for any CEO, and I think the first 3 of the 3 techniques I would talk about is to anticipate and prepare for massive change by taking the following steps. Setting up structures that allow rapid decision making, establishing business impact analysis, assessments. Establishing a common purpose and a clear communication plan, and creating a network of local teams. Setting up structures for quick, efficient, continuous decision making, identifying a team, the crisis management team, who are mainly responsible for spearheading end-to-end processes during the crisis. Identifying critical processes, and important to identify the teams that manage the processes, and establishing backups. Establishing purpose and a clear communication, focusing on frequent communication, keeping clients updated of any changes, and also communicating to stakeholders such as your regulators and other partners. Local networks I talked about, accounting roles and businesses units, encouraging sharing lessons learned and best practices. The second major, item would be investment, forward-looking investments. As a bank, we were fortunate enough to have invested in technology. Since 2015, we've been investing in technology and digital platforms. Investing in resources for our employees, including laptops, VPN, software, making it possible for our employees to work from anywhere. We've migrated from primarily an office setup to virtually and anywhere arrangements. I talked about the platforms that we had invested in for our clients, being Straight to Bank and SE Mobile. We also invested in security, investing significantly in cybersecurity solutions to ensure that our platforms are robust. The third would be agility and resilience. Resilient foundation is the base for each organization, following which you can innovate with speed and add practices to enable you react very quickly in crisis. Where necessary, as a large organization like SEB, we had to deviate from our program construct to take on board a small company mindset and tactics with great agility. So those were the three key areas that we focused on.
Great, very interesting. And Wissam, in the oil and gas industry, of course, you're used to risk management, but this year's not only offered you the challenges of COVID, but also the actions of OPEC Plus, which drove down the oil prices before the pandemic hit. As a business, what were the three key tools and processes that you deployed to ensure the sustainability and robustness of the business during these times?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I think Mansa covered this answer really well, and a lot of what she said applies to us. But I think the key things for us have been, number one, because our priority has been to minimize the impact of COVID on both the health and well-being of our people, and I would say our people, I mean our broader workforce, including contractors, stakeholders, but also certainly the impact of the criticality of the oil and gas flows in the country, both for power and for revenue. And so rewinding to where we are today, thankfully, we're very proud that we feel like we've been successful in doing that. We're certainly not, COVID's not behind us, but to date, we feel like the impacts have been mitigated. And really, I'd say the things that help with that, number one, really close partnership with our stakeholders, in particular the government of Ghana. So we wouldn't have been able to maintain operations if it wasn't for, to give specific examples, having deviations around travel restrictions that were very carefully risk managed that were given to us by the government of Ghana, access from a logistics standpoint to ports and our vessels offshore that perhaps were given as part of a concession by the government of Ghana, that's again very carefully risk managed, and then having them very available to discuss response actions. That was hugely critical, and that doesn't happen suddenly. It happens because of a history of working together closely and successfully with the government of Ghana. I'd say the second one is just emergency preparedness, and Mansa spoke about this, so I won't dwell on it. But even when I first came into the company early in the beginning of the year, we were well before the pandemic hit Western Europe or Africa. We were already working really hard on scenario planning. What if this happens? Who does what? Who do you call? And actually drilled them. Actually did drills to do that in offices and offshore facilities. That helped us in spades going into April, May, June, because those scenarios effectively played themselves out, and we had prepared ourselves. And then last but not least, I'd say if you're looking for a third point, Stephen, it would be investing in the dedication and motivation of our staff. It would not have been possible to be resilient and come out with relatively minimal impact on our operations without the really hard-working and high capability levels of our workforce. And that includes through our supply chains, our partners, our many local companies and foreign companies that support our operations. And I would say, if you're looking for a technique, and what we've learned is really investing in having a workforce that is passionate about what you do and what they do, will come back and come back positively in spades at times of crisis, and we saw that through COVID.
Very interesting, and both of you raised a point about stakeholders and supply chains. And Mansa, as a bank, I'm sure you are engaging with many different businesses through this challenge, both as customers and other stakeholders. But from what you've seen of those businesses, what do you think have been the defining attributes of those businesses who've been able to respond to the challenges of this pandemic the best to ensure that their business remain resilient, or even seeing growth this year?
So I talked about agility, and studies have shown that organizations that are agile and nimble are able to prepare fast and quick and adapt to change, no matter the crisis. Standard Chartered, being part of a global network, we were able to learn from our colleagues in Asia where the pandemic first started. Our crisis management team, I talked about, we were able to update, our business continuity plan. So agility was so important. And I think what Wissam talked about, drills. We actually simulated a lockdown situation whereby 90% of our, during the simulation, just 10% were in the office. So by the time the lockdown was actually announced by the president, we settled very, very quickly into the new ways of working. So companies that are agile are best fits to face this crisis. And we settled very quickly, focusing on our clients and trying to understand and being receptive to their peculiar needs during this pandemic. So globally, I think Lindsey talked about the fact that we set up a 1 billion fund that offered clients financing needs at reduced cost. And this was mainly focused on companies that were involved in products and services that supported the fights of the pandemic. Technology is something I spoke about earlier, and companies that have invested in technology are the companies that are survive this crisis. Very important point, and I think what Wissam talked about this, is investing in people and making sure that your workforce are future ready. These businesses that are able to retrain and reskill their employees rather than replace them, are best poised. Ensuring that the right skills in the organization, you're able to move people around, by reskilling them. So, for example, as a bank, after the lockdown, we redeployed people from the back office to critical roles in the front office. So, for example, we expanded our contact center. This helped us deal with client needs. We formed squads to listen to the voice of the customer, to gather insights on how to improve, client experience. So those are the three areas I would say.
Mansa, thanks. And Wissam, Mansa raised an interesting point there in terms of supply chains. Your industry relies very much on supply chains supporting your operations. Given the impact that this year has had on your supply chain, what have you seen within that supply chain, the attributes of businesses that have been able to weather this storm and hopefully come out stronger and grow as we move forward?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. At the risk of repeating some of what Mansa said, I'll try to be specific, give some specific examples. So the first item, nimbleness. We had a couple of suppliers, and I won't name them just because I don't have their consent in doing so, but this is very positive in that we had, some suppliers that help our logistics operations onshore. They were nimble enough to be able to expand their product suite. So they used to offer us X, let's say, just trucking services for a hypothetical example. And when the pandemic came about, they went away, obviously did a lot to multi-skill and look at what else they can do, and came back to us and said, hey, beyond trucking services, we can offer you this, that, and this. And it's the sort of supplies that we would have actually gone to 3 other different suppliers for. Much more difficult during the pandemic to sort of have a wider supply chain than a more narrow one, because you need decisions quickly and you need. So those suppliers for us were probably benefited from the ability to quickly offer high quality services outside what we've traditionally relied on them for. And in some cases, no, actually I'd say most of the cases, they will probably continue to offer that more bundled suite of services beyond the pandemic to us. So I think nimbleness and ability to expand your product suite or service suite is a critical thing. I think for sure technology. So, we have a number, the oil and gas industry does tend to be compared to banking, does tend to be very traditional in terms of a lot of stuff still done on paper, a lot of stuff still signed, a lot of documents need to physically be stamped and things like that. I was really impressed by what some of our suppliers did to digitalize extremely quickly. And so, accept that there is protocol, there is requirements that may require hard copy work, but hey, let's challenge the status quo, given that some of the traditional ways of working may not be feasible right now. And so they did that for us, and they pushed the envelope, and they said, here we're offering technology solutions to some things that were done very traditionally. And they benefited. They got more business, not just from us, and also not just from our industry, from other industries as well, because of their ability to quickly digitalize what they do.
Very good. So, there's two common themes coming out in both of your answers here, both for your businesses and the businesses that you support or support you. And that's one of nimbleness and investment in the future. But today we are at the time of the year when people are preparing their annual budgets, which are based on assumptions about the future. And if they're to have that nimbleness and make the investments, how, given that we are in these uncharted waters as to the degree of uncertainty ahead, what advice would you offer to companies as they go about the preparation of their budgets for next year? Mansa.
Yes. So Stephen, I think in a recent engagement, we hosted with the IMF, the mission chief confirmed that Ghana is heading for a V-shaped recovery. So with regards to budgeting, I think depending on the industry, each budget, would be quite different. But I think fundamentally, putting aside a budget to be ready for future advances in technology, we keep talking about is very, very, very important. Again, budgeting, ensuring that you're budgeting for upskilling and reskilling a future fit workforce with cross-skilled talent is vital. And given how the pandemic has impacted the viability of lots of businesses, it's important, and I'm sure Wissam will agree with me, to stay efficient and remain lean and focused on costs. Cut back on expenditure, relook at office spaces, for example, to become more efficient. In some industries, you're cutting back on your costs, but you're reinvesting in other areas of where you have your core competencies. Organizations should we love to travel in Ghana, so organizations should cut back on travel and resort to virtual and learning and meetings. And I think it's important for businesses to understand their core competencies and outsource other capabilities that are not core to them. Seek partnerships. Wissam talked a lot about partnerships. Seek partnerships with companies where specialized skills are required. And these would help you, position for the future and take advantage of economic recovery and growth.
Great, Mansa, thank you for that, and very sage advice there. And Wissam, just moving from sort of the efficiency side to the revenue side, as Tullow is selling a product that is impacted by sort of global trends and dynamics, how does Tullow budget for the future in the face of the uncertainty of demand and the shape of the global recovery, let alone the Ghanaian recovery? And what lessons do you think can be shared with those on the call today?
Yeah, Stephen. So I think look, we in a business that's focused on oil and gas are obviously in a difficult crossroads where the demand for our product is globally reducing, right? While oil and gas, we firmly believe, even in the most, quote, pessimistic views, will continue to make up a large portion of global energy demand satisfaction. That rate of increase will undoubtedly be decreasing over the coming years, and that'll affect oil price. So that's really a big macroeconomic challenge for us to coexist with. Having said that, every challenge brings opportunity, and I think to be fit for that opportunity in a world where lots of integrated oil and gas majors will undoubtedly be reducing their exposure to oil and gas for a variety of reasons. The fittest, low cost, and to be honest, greenest oil and gas suppliers will be the ones that we believe will survive. And we're very focused on making Tullow, and also certainly Tullow Ghana, one of those. So how do we do that? Certainly reducing our cost of supply is critical, because you're not just competing against other oil and gas providers, you're competing against other sources of energy, and cost of supply in that space is going down quickly. So we are very focused on becoming the lowest cost supplier possible in consideration of where our energy comes from. Still relatively complex deep water oil and gas operations in Ghana. So that's a key area we're focused on, and we've already taken big steps, be it organizationally, be it in our capital budgets, that have been painful, but we believe are necessary to be fit as a low-cost source of supply for the future, without getting into any of those specifically here for the purpose of time. But I think the other thing is, Mansa said V-shaped, and she's absolutely right. I think more and more there's congregation around, not just in our industry, but in others. There is in Ghana and elsewhere more of a V-shaped recovery forecast. So what you also simultaneously don't want to do is get caught on the back end of that V. So you have to almost, and this is what we're doing, is being ready to be nimble and invest quickly where necessary, so that if there is a growth spurt, which for us, it would manifest itself through global oil demand increasing because of increased consumer appetite coming out of COVID globally, then we have to be ready to respond to that. We can't just say, well, we're trying to reduce capital and reduce costs, give us a few years. We need to be ready to act immediately. And so that's another piece of sage advice I think I'd give almost any industry, is you have to be ready not to be caught out by a sudden spike in recovery, be it in Ghana or globally.
Yeah, very, very, very important points. And the word nimble keeps coming up through the course of this webinar, and I think that really begs the question, Mansa, from where you sit, where do you see the new emerging opportunities coming out of the pandemic, and what do you think the new industries of the future will be as a result of this pandemic?
Well, Stephen, I think technology will play an integral role in the part of future companies that will survive this pandemic, and I can share a few examples in terms of those who've emerged stronger. Fintechs, for example, they've been nimble. We're talking about nimble a lot. They've come up with easy solutions and fixes that banks take a while to develop. Companies offering e-payment solutions, along with e-commerce, like e-money, like mobile money, widely used in Ghana. This will complement the government's efforts towards a digitized economy. E-commerce, we saw a rise in e-commerce, especially during the lockdown. Online marketplace like companies like Jumia saw a sharp rise in online purchases, and they forged partnerships with retailers and supermarkets. Hospitals, pharmaceuticals, given the type of the pandemic, and other healthcare service providers are specializing in new trends like telemedicine, also specializing in bespoke healthcare services delivery and healthcare equipment. Bespoke marketing, courier companies and ride-hailing services are now essential. I mean, I don't go to the market at all myself. Somebody delivers it to my home. companies specializing in cybersecurity, ensuring electronic services are easily accessible in a completely safe and secure manner. So these are some of the examples, and as a bank, our straight bank platform has really supported our clients, and they were able to perform transactions sitting in their homes. That has been an integral part of us providing value to our clients in these challenging times.
Okay, interesting. And Wissam, in terms of the oil and gas industry, do you see any new industries coming out of this pandemic for your sector?
Yeah, Stephen, I think this is a super interesting topic, and it's one really we could spend a few hours on. And I actually, there is enough to talk about in this space. But just to call out some things maybe slightly different, I agree completely with Mansa, but just to try to give some different content here. I think one area that's going to be interesting, and I know we'll see it more and more in our industry, is the disaggregation of supply chains. I firmly believe, the world's ebbed on this idea of we can, certainly my years in the oil and gas industry, the world's moved towards a direction of truly globalized supply chains where you're able, no matter where you're based or where you're operating, you can get whatever you want, even if it comes from all around the world. And certainly that's advanced the world and society a lot the last 10 years. But I personally believe that that COVID is going to kind of change that a little bit, or the pandemic we've just been through. So I think we will see more and more disaggregated supply chains, so more locally delivered goods and services, I think will carry a positive premium for companies like us. I see it as a huge opportunity for local content providers, for example, local content suppliers in Ghana, as an example. More and more of the world, and I'll include Tullow Ghana in that space, will see a value in being able to get something locally rather than from all the way in Texas, for example, in our industry. And so I think disaggregation of global supply chains is a feature and a theme that we're going to see coming out of this pandemic. I think there's lots of opportunities in that for small companies in local geographies that'll be valuable to customers. So that's kind of one area. And then just to completely quote something, get into something different. I see an interesting theme around partnership with government coming out of the pandemic. I think in certain countries, trust in government won't change, but I think in many countries, I think the pandemic has proved that government is important for many things, and I think without getting into global geopolitics, I think many countries have seen that the government is a strong partner in supporting industry to be successful at difficult times. So I think coming out of this, sort of companies or entities that are able to facilitate successful partnership with governments and organizations, that facilitate that, like DTI, for want of an example, will be key. Will be really key. And I think I think there'll be some emerging trends around enabling successful partnership with governments that comes out of this pandemic.
Yeah, well, your comments about the disaggregation of supply chains more domestically will be music to the ears of many Ghanaian companies. Now, Mansa, you highlighted Standard Chartered raising the $1 billion to support companies leading into the pandemic response. And clearly there have been some other more local interventions offered by both the government and the Bank of Ghana to businesses, including the offer of credit guarantees to banks lending into SMEs and key sectors. How important do you think these are in terms of the longer term support, or do you see these really as a support that should only be seen by businesses for getting through the here and now challenges?
This is, I think, very important because SMEs, are the engine of growth for every economy, either developed or developing. The largest sector that supports economic growth and job creation. in Africa, SMEs comprise about 90% of businesses. They employ 50% of the population in Africa and contribute to about 30% of Africa's GDP. In Ghana, SMEs represent 85% of businesses and arguably, they contribute to about 70% of Ghana's GDP. So they are critical, and they're also critical enablers of the and beneficiaries of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So in a crisis situation, definitely it's important to support, the SMEs. And I think the government's interventions so far have been quite commendable. Going forward, government needs to continue to create innovative and enabling economy, optimizing digital infrastructure, we've talked about severally, and providing low-cost energy sources to support growth priorities. So very, very important and critical.
Great, thank you. And I see that we have a number of questions coming in on the Q&A box, and please keep those questions coming. Just going to the final question, Wissam, before we go into the Q&A session. What is the one enduring change that you want to see in your business moving forward that will ensure both resilience and strength in the business for the future?
Thanks, Stephen. If I had to pick one, it would center around creating lasting, sustainable loyalty and commitment from our workforce. And by workforce, I'm talking about our broader workforce. I think it's proved to us through the pandemic that it is essential to have that to drive mitigation of impact through times of crisis. It's good in good times, it's good in bad times. I think the one enduring change for us, and like any big business, we have our areas of opportunity to improve in that space. We're going to be very focused on creating an environment for our greater workforce to feel both proud and energized by what they do every day working in our company. So that's one big area I would pick out if I had to pick one.
Okay, and Mansa, the same question to yourself.
So yeah, I think that even though profitability remains fundamental to businesses, I think more organizations need to focus on customers, society, and stakeholders. Sustainable practices, including the right governance structures and reinvesting in the business. And I think Wissam hit the nail on the head. These are our greatest assets. And, we need to make sure, and I've made this point severally, that we are focusing on the well-being of our employees, leveraging on partnerships for employee assistance programs that are focused on their physical, emotional, and financial well-being, creating an environment for promoting lifelong learning among our employees. And I need to end on this. We need to challenge conventional corporate stereotypes to encourage diversity of thought, ensuring that we have the right gender balance across all levels.
Absolutely. Well, certainly our chat so far has generated a number of interesting questions from the audience. Let me kick the first one off. So, the pandemic has placed extraordinary demands on leaders in business and beyond. What were the leadership practices that you personally deployed in help navigating through this crisis? Mansa.
Typically as a leader, my management style would be, collaborative. But, given the crisis, I had to be very, very decisive. Aside from the key three areas I talked about in terms of ensuring that, we take the right decisions. I had to be decisive, act quickly, be nimble. So I've talked about it earlier, and I think that helped us. And put our employees in the sense of and their well in the sense of all the decisions that we took. Given that this was a health pandemic, we needed to ensure employees and our customers were safe.
Yes.
And communicating to them.
Okay, great. And Wissam, what would you respond to on that question?
I was going to say it's a curse to go second, but actually it's a pleasure to go second because Mansa covers everything so well. So I won't repeat, but I'll pick something else up, because certainly swift action, and we learned to do that in our industry over many years, to suddenly move into emergency response mode. That served us well here. I think it's important as a leader to be ready to do that, while at the same time be collaborative. To maybe pick another one out that's maybe an extension of collaboration is mindfulness. Maybe is probably one. So look, the pandemic has put a lot of personal pressure on people, right? I mean, there's people with children, there's people with sick parents, there's people who both parents work, there's people with living quarter difficulty situations. I think, and we never know and shouldn't know everyone's story. But the one thing we do know is that people are living through difficult circumstances. And I think you have to be mindful of that as a leader. You don't need to know the details, but you have to know that you have to be considerate of that. You have to make arrangements for people that perhaps don't fit the nice box of, okay, everyone works on Teams, so we're all fine, or everyone works off of Zoom and we're all fine. There's complexities, there's additional layers of consideration that need to be made. And I learned a lot about myself, and I certainly didn't do everything all right, but I learned a lot about, the need to be flexible in how you think and be very considerate of individual circumstances to enable, and I mean this not just for our workforce, but for our partners, for our suppliers, for government stakeholders. Be considerate of the fact that pandemics like this present unique circumstances for individuals, families, and companies. And I think I've learned it's really important to be mindful and considerate that maybe the solution you have in mind isn't the right one for that particular individual.
Very, very insightful there. And I have a question for you directly, Wissam, so you won't be responding second. We have an anonymous question here asking, do you think that the shocks and effects of COVID-19 on your operations are over, or is it early days yet, looking at the second wave in Europe and the Americas?
Yeah, so the straight answer is, I think it would be naive to think that it's over. I think so. We are certainly acting as if the pandemic is with us for the long term. There's lots of strands to that, but the two broad ones are lower oil price for longer, and secondly, restrictions and complications associated with operations because of COVID around for longer. And meaning any day now we could find out we've got someone who happens to test positive for the virus on one of our offshore facilities. We're certainly not letting our guard down on that. So I think the straight answer is no, don't think the shocks are over, and we're preparing accordingly. I don't have a crystal ball about second wave in Europe and the Americas, but if there is one, we will be ready for it. And if there's one in Africa, we'll be ready for it too. That's how we're setting ourselves up.
Great. And Mansa, a question directly for you. Work for the Managing Director of Standard Chartered, work from home because of COVID-19. Do you think that it has come to stay, or do you think that the banking community are ready for this?
So that's an interesting question. I think we recently conducted a survey for our employees and asked them about the work from home arrangement, and it's interesting. A majority still want to continue, not every day, because I guess they feel that the social aspect of meeting colleagues is important, but maybe 2-3 days a week, and because of obviously the efficiency of cutting commute time and travel time makes us a lot more efficient and productive. So a good balance, I would say, would be ideal.
Okay, and a joint question from George from Joy FM. To all MDs, what will happen to people and personnel post-COVID-19? Are we going to be heavy on technology?
George, you know, I think that we've talked a lot about investing in technology and you know, the pace at which technology has developed, we can't run away from it. So I think the key I keep repeating would be reskilling and retraining our employees. How then do we prepare our employees to be future ready 5 to 10 years ahead? So by doing this, you can redeploy them into areas where you can utilize them more effectively.
And Wissam?
Yeah, so George, thank you for the great question. I mean, look, technology in its different forms has transformed how people add value to the world since the beginning of time, right? And I see currently as no exception. This current form of technology, you know, has manifested itself in things like remote working, digitized solutions around services, and many other things. That probably reduces the need for people in the way in the role they play today, but it also introduces new opportunities for people to play a larger role in something else that enables that. So I think this is a really interesting topic. What Mansa said is really critical around our role as employers in both upskilling our people, but also the supply chains we work with. But I also think that every individual, it's incumbent on them that just like they have through the beginning of time to really look at where some of those opportunities sit. Me and Mansa suggested some for companies. They might be right, they might be wrong, but I think my counsel would be that people, in every reduction of people need, there's an increase of people need somewhere else. And it's the key thing is identifying where that is and jumping on those opportunities, because I believe there'll be many.
Okay, thanks. And those listening in, please keep feeding in the questions. Another question here. There have been previous pandemics and it's predicted there will be future ones. Would you say your business is now in a better position to respond to any future shocks?
No, given what, you know, so COVID-19 has been, you know, a real test, as I indicated, for companies and CEOs. So this has better prepared us. And you know, in the first question that Stephen sort of addressed to us, I think preparation, scenario planning, you know, business continuity plans are very, very important. So this is really sort of, given that we've tested our business continuity plans, this is giving us, you know, enough resilience and an opportunity to prepare for future crises or other pandemics. And it's, you know, the world of business is such that, you know, crises happen every now and then. So to prepare for crisis is part of business, running a business now.
I would say for us, Stephen, same. I think Ebola helped us be better prepared for Corona, and Corona will help us be better prepared for the next pandemic. The one caveat I'd say is one thing's for sure, the next pandemic will be nothing like the previous pandemic. And so there'll be things in it that will be new to us. There'll be things that we weren't ready for. So I think it's really, it helps, each pandemic helps you prepare for the next one, but we're really investing in sort of inside knowledge. I think one thing that's clear is not just being prepared, but also being informed on trends ahead of where they hit you is maybe an area we've underinvested in, maybe as a globe actually in the past. But as a company, we're going to put more time and emphasis into understanding future trends as it relates to health pandemics, so we're ready for what's different next time.
Great. Well, we're just coming up to the hour, and in the interest of time, I'd like just to make a few closing remarks. But first of all, thank you both very much for your time today and sharing your thoughts and views on how to come back stronger. Obviously, in times of crisis in a business sector, it can often lead to an overall improvement in the community. Weaker entrants often leave the game when the environment worsens and the barriers to entry for new players seem higher. Those that remain, therefore, have reduced competition and better quality competitors who operate with similar parameters and behaviour. Today, we've heard from two business leaders whose businesses are clearly well positioned to sustain and grow in the future. In challenging times, one must question the accepted reality, and we've heard this today through the word nimble being repeated quite often. Because things do go wrong, rapid answers are needed, and the solution may well be found outside the usual compass. In the world of business, we're often guilty of not challenging the norm, and instead we're satisfied with following procedure and tradition. We've heard from Mansa today that businesses need to remain flexible, nimble to respond to these times. But on all these changes, and both speakers have said this, that we must not lose sight of the business's most valuable assets, its people. At times of crisis and major changes in business environments, it is the company's people who support and drive a business forward. As business leaders, we must not lose sight of that, that the individuals may be facing their own personal crisis. And Wissam very articulately talked about mindfulness on that particular point. And so, closing out today's webinar, I guess the enduring comment is businesses need to remain nimble to respond to the crisis, but most importantly, make sure that the growth is actually centered around their people. Once again, thank you very much, Wissam and Mansa, for your time today. Really valuable insights, and also thank you to DIT and the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce for today's events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A pleasure.